What are they grabbing our employees going back to the locker rooms and grabbing their purses and backpacks and things like that, or are they just gonna go out and save their lives, right? Here we go again. Hello again, PCQI, and welcome back. In this segment, we are performing an SOP review. It is titled Crisis Incident for Fire. Okay, so this is a particular SOP that was written and was submitted to us here for a review. So I want to make sure the document title is applicable to the process. So that's the first things first. The document control number is issued and the applicable revision number and what department it belongs to and supersedes. And then we have the effective date and the prepared by, reviewed by, and approved by signatures. Obviously, we're in the review stage, so it was prepared by someone else. I am now going to be reviewing it and for it to be submitted to the client for approval. All right, so let's kind of dive into that. Part of this is, okay, let's look at the purpose. To provide safety and health information to protect personnel and food items from hazards associated with fire incident. So this particular SOP, it's not about the fire drill. It's actually dealing with, a post-fire. Frequency of this for review is annually or when things change. All right, so there's a frequency part of that. So they have a tools and equipment section of what needs to be available for this particular SOP. So they've included a battery powered or a hand crank radio, obviously just in case if there's a power outage, if the fires is out. Obviously in today's technology everybody has a cell phone, but just in case, right? So they are ready for this kit. And there's a flashlight, and there are PPEs required if you are re-entering the facility after a post-fire. So they have those instructions for the PPE, like bump caps, and gloves and coats, applicable pants, boots that are steel-toed, assuming you have some fallen debris. Now, on this SOP, it didn't particularly point out that the fire department had left already. So I'm just making notes on this particular SOP to be able to add those for that. Obviously, the facility personnel, they're not firefighters. So, so I wanted a little bit of clarification on this SOP for this review. And then they have a face mask or a face shield. For them to perform and make an assessment. There's also a procedure here of getting clearance from the fire chief or the person that's in charge from the fire to re-enter the facility. Now, if it's a small fire, obviously that had occurred, you're gonna have some other procedures on here. They've also included in this part of it is to add a whistle for it to signal for help in the event the fire alarm does not perform for its intended use. Sometimes you pull the fire alarm and it might not work because of lack of maintenance and whatnot. So, okay, and there's some preventive measures as well for the annual fire department. They do that. They come and inspect these type of systems. And then they have on this particular SOPs, I'm just kind of skipping through because there's a lot of details on it, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed. Sorry about that, PCQI. I'm just looking at the points. They've identified shelter location, for the evacuees in this event. You have a facility, there's a fire, everybody's obviously it's going to be vacating the facility, so there are meeting points where everybody meets in the parking lot, and you kind of account for everybody. Make sure you didn't leave anybody behind. Your buddy systems are in place. If you're working with Henry every day, Obviously, you're gonna you're gonna look for him, make sure he's with you, type of stuff. So there's some instructions in there on designated part of it. Now there's also instruction here about checking the bathrooms and the floors and whatnot. Obviously, it's a fire, so as you're leaving, there are some information for you to kind of open doors really quick and just kind of yell out and make sure nobody fell, hurt themselves, or perhaps has some heart problem because of this particular quick incident. They have an episode that you can help them out, or at least notify authorities of where they're at. Fire extinguisher inspection is part of the process here. Make sure they are serviceable, okay, and their annual or biannual inspections are performed. Emergency eye wash, just smoke, so there's preparation for those as well. Emergency shower, just in case you do need those. Smoke detector maintenance, we mentioned the fire alarm as well. Now, some warehouses I've worked with, they actually have fire hoses in every aisle, and how you work on those water pressure and for the fire hose maintenance, because I believe I don't know if it's 5 or 10 years, so help me out here, PCQI, depending on the state. I've done a complete setup where there used to be a distribution facility that was converted to food manufacturing, and I through that experience worked with the fire department in building out the clean room and the processing room per code about fire extinguishing systems and whatnot. But on the fire hose, they actually have tags on them. For so many years you're going to have to replace them, and then for so many years you're going to have to verify their integrity, or for so many months and whatnot. So just take a look at that. I don't have the actual details for that. Sorry about that, PCQI. Your fire sprinkler systems, right? Emergency route maps and alarm systems is part of the this type of SOP here. Cell phones, and charging portals for emergency charger, kind of like this. Okay, so they made that part of their kit, where you have an extra battery just in case for emergency calls and whatnot, as part of one of their kits here. Cameras, it's one part, so they can take photos for the damages and to apply their food safety measures. Okay, they've listed the consumables like the first aid kits. That they're replenished with the following. Obviously, the adhesive tapes, gloves, gauze, antiseptic, any type of ointment or cream that deals with cuts and burns. Bandages, tweezers, scissors, and some of them, because they might have folks in their team that might have some breathing problem like asthma, they're actually added inhaler as part of that kit for that. Now, these are just some of the practices that we review, okay, PCQI. So before you look at this thing and go, oh, we're gonna need that, we're gonna need this, because all about compliance mentioned it. It is for your customization for your intended process, okay? So this is just kind of a window of what other facilities are doing. Supply kits, such as drinking water, right? And they've included moist towelettes here, I guess, to be cleaning things and sanitizing stuff. And then cleaning chemicals from your all-purpose cleaner and disinfectant, and they have a slew of other things that they do, for that. And then they have responsibility for the safety officer, to perform and check on all of these things on an annual basis. For that, and they put together an emergency response team. It's kind of like a mini committee where they have some of their senior leaders, leads and supervisors involved in this type of exercise. And this is actually pretty good, especially on your crisis management exercise, if you're using fire drill as one of those part of you to challenge or to prove the integrity of your system. So they actually have an emergency response team and the process. What is QA gonna do if it's a small fire, and then you have to segregate that type of area, and then reactivating the line. So they have cleaning and sanitation procedures, disposal of food materials that's been contaminated, and affected refrigeration system. So they actually have them listed here. And what does that look like on those next steps of reactivating the line? And then on the evacuation plans, they actually do a mock exercise and actually look at the flow of personnel. People are going to be panicking, right? What are they grabbing? Are employees going back to the locker rooms and grabbing their purses and backpacks and things like that, or are they just going to go out and save their lives, right? So they have a lot of great contingency and preventive measures as well in this SOP. So like I said, PCK, I'm just pointing out some of the SOP review here, and before I dive in and actually put all of the stuff I would like to see for it, for this. I'm not going to bore you with that, so bear with me. Then they have their procedures, like I said, the preparedness part of their preventive action for a fire incident. Phone numbers to call, obviously 911, right? Now, if you are not in the United States and you are watching this, take a look at your emergency phone numbers for your fire department. We're fortunate enough, and I know not all countries have this, that we have a 911 system. And I understand because I travel, throughout, Latin America and Asia, with some of these process that there are no 911 in place in some of the areas that I go to. So make sure your fire department, your police, like all their local numbers are listed as part of your preparedness checklist, or in this event, you're registered and whatnot. Now, basically on this one for the preparedness, they also look at the facility complying with the fire codes. I've been to facility where certain doors that are no longer used because of their tenants improvement, that they're actually bolted in chain, right? So because they don't want people to cross over, or they haven't got to that part. So make sure you have proper signage for your emergency exit, especially if that door, it's a one-way out swing and you are locking the other side and you have personnel coming in, and if they have a misunderstanding of the signage of how to they're there to save their lives, and if they're hitting that door and it's not opening, you got a big issue. I don't know how it is in other countries on the fire marshal, but here in the United States, you got to have proper signage, and if that door is bolted, there's certain during working hours that it needs to be open, or where there are personnel that are facilitating their activities need to exit. So we have provision where it could open out when you push it from the inside, but you can't access it from the outside. So it complies with food defense. So be mindful of that, PCQI, when you're doing your walk around. Okay, I know you're acting as safety officer now, but unfortunately, it's expected of us as preventive controllers, right? It's part of it. So there we are. Now, the fire drill exercise here on the procedure, they actually put insert frequency here. Normally, these are performed annually. For that, can you perform them more? Sure, right? Always, practice, train, right? So when things actually happen, everything's automatic. Panic is averted and you save lives. Always follow the chain of command, so they have that. Obviously, they have a list of senior leadership for that. Know the emergency functions and who will perform them. Now, on emergency functions, right here, if there's a fire, normally what I look for when I'm working on the facility side, I look at it. I know there's a safety officer that's going to be, he's all about all of the OSHA and safety requirements of saving the individual. As a PCQI, I'm looking at the food the dietary supplement, right? All of these things that we're consuming, for us to exist. So that's where that line is. I always, on a side note, when you're looking at a glove, right? When you go to a dentist, they put gloves on. It's to protect the technician. In food safety, we apply glove maintenance to protect the food against us the person. So that's kind of that mentality evolves here. So let's put our food safety hat back on as a PCQI. So first things first is what happens with the gas, right? So who shuts that off? For that part of it. So cooking is going to stop, or baking is going to stop, and all of that aspect of it. And then what are my disposal procedure, or recouping those materials to put in certain areas for that. So what does that look like? Do we actually perform that during this type of a drill, or if it's a real fire, or do we just evacuate? And then what would happen when we come back and recover the line, right? What are my disposal procedure for materials that's been sitting there for longer than 20 minutes? Or they had the defect action level had hit based on time and temperature in my processing line. What does that look like? So as a PCQI, you need to start, putting these together and asking those questions of, getting them in a refrigerated unit and then, pulling them out. What if the refrigeration unit failed because now the electricity went out? Next part of the procedures, instructions, they put the evacuation procedures, including routes and exits and meeting points, which we discussed previously. Identifying personnel for basically the head count of personnel, customers, and visitors. Now, on a crisis management or in this fire drill challenge, make it part of your checklist to check the visitor log as well. This is why people sign in and out. You want to make sure that nobody is left in the building. Share you a little bit of a story. Was working on a plant in my previous life, and we had a fire drill exercise that was initiated by one of our compliance officers at the time, part of our annual training. And we actually had a visitor that was on the phone in one of the conference room in this big building that we forgot all about it. So when we were doing the post check after all of the clearances, and we actually performed that exercise with the fire department. They participated, which was a very wonderful experience. We've learned a lot from it. And they actually found one of our visitor was on the phone, and he was just oblivious of the whole exercise. And he's been there, conducting his business, and he's on the phone and just, just being him. And that's when we learn, check the visitor log and call out their names, for that. So that's a big lesson learned, from our part. What are the equipment sanitation? Now that you had some, a possible smoke or fire damage or contamination, obviously you're going to have to then take a look at those procedures of getting those cleaned out is part of your SOP. If you don't have them, those are probably going to be performed by third-party sanitation company. Please have those listed just in case you do get asked during an audit. Let me see, the protection systems are in place and good operating conditions, and they are regularly checked, so put your frequency for that. And the review of the plan with the workers, right, with the team on an annual, at a minimum on an annual requirements or as needed. And then they put some guidelines in case of fire, so they actually put that in this program. First person to see the fire will immediately notify the emergency team lead. Obviously, also pull, the most important part of that is the fire alarm. So that should have been part of the very first thing of that sentence on that part. But obviously, then the second part is reporting it once you see your team lead. Emergency rescue team personnel are notified, and obviously they have their own PPE, so you're not accountable for that. They have the T-pass rule for fire extinguisher, which is twist the wire, P, pull the pin, aim the nozzle for A, squeeze the trigger, sweep the base of the fire, right? So they have the T-pass verbiage on their emergency fire extinguisher. And then they have the fire alarm activation processes, as well as the directions for evacuations as part of their preventive measures. And then electrical and natural gas and boilers, the deactivating operation, who turns them off, or the designated team that are responsible for that. So there's some of these are maintenance department function, that they know what they're doing in the event that they hear the fire alarm or it's on the radio stating that there is a fire in the facility and what their action items needs to be performed. Conducting head count outside, and emergency response team's responsibility of working with the fire department at that point, and keeping everybody accounted for and reactivating the line. And there's a lot of verbiage here about guidelines, after the fire, what to do on the damage assessment, and your SOPs for reactivating the line, as well as your SSOPs on the sanitation of equipment and the plant and utensils, and updating the plan for post exercise. So the post report, getting those lessons and actually updating your plan and putting those good practices that you just discovered, or lack thereof, right? You're missing some steps, and now you can put all of those things back into your plan. Now they have some general instruction on equipment and utensils cleanups here that's referred to different SSOPs. Obviously, it's not all going to be covered in this one plan. You're going to have to use your SSOP system for that. And then the how to deal with the products for disposal, and obviously inventory checks, and as well as proper dispositions of your damaged equipment, utensils, and raw materials, etc., etc. And there's some corrective actions in the event that doesn't happen. What do you do here? So they have third parties that are on retainer to be able to perform these type of preventive measures, like safety consultants, OSHA consultants, and things like that, for other processes. And always there's a reference document section where all the forms and reports and checklists, and employee lists, and all of the other guidances from OSHA, as well as the first aid training or trainer, and non-conforming material log forms, and product disposal log forms, and applicable SOPs and SSOPs that are interlinked to this particular SOP for this fire crisis management, right? Or crisis incident SOP. Well, let me end there. PCQI, thank you again for participating on this SOP review. If you have any concerns or would like to add in some of the things that we've covered here in this summary, please email us at info@consultairinc.com. Till then, have a great day, PCQI. Bye for now. Contact us. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks again, PCQIs. Have a good one.